Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Aloha and welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we go to the islands of Hawaii to learn Tabout distant quantum energy healing and metaphysics with energy healing instructors and practitioners Daerick and Nedrra Lanakila. Plus, they offer us even more insight on how to further co-create with nature and the spiritual beings we each have the opportunity to work with. So with that, Daerick and Nedrra, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, and aloha to you.
Aloha.
Thank you, you too. I'm super excited. I love a little aloha in my life. So being a little bit Lemurian, I suspect. I suspect we all have a merging ancestry somewhere that has yet to be found. So before we get into your beautiful work, let's begin with how you got into this work in the first place. So ladies first, Nedrra, will you please tell everybody how you got into this and how your wonderful husband was introduced to it as well?
Well, I was guided into learning about metaphysics first because I was raised a Catholic, a devout Catholic, and I was guided to walk backwards into metaphysics because had I known I was going to listen to someone at a metaphysical institute who was a psychic, I probably would not have gone because back then the teachings were of the church were that those types of things were occult and satanic, and I didn't want to do or be around anything satanic. So I didn't know that that's what I was going to listen to, and that's a long story, but that was in the 70s. And um, the woman who was speaking was Nancy Ann Tappy, who was a renowned psychic back then. She's passed away. And she was the one who introduced the indigos to the world. She's the one who talked about what they were and that they were just coming in. And she also read auric fields, and she wrote a book, very thick book on what color is your aura. So that's how I got into it. And as I started to learn more about metaphysics, it was really fascinating. It made sense to me. I felt more connected. I felt more connected with the world. Before that, I felt an oddball. I felt a maverick.
Why?
Just a lot of reasons, but I think the biggest reason really was because I had experienced a series of abuses, sexual abuses, from harassment to rape, from starting at the age of 7 to my early 20s. And so I was, I didn't know it then, but I was dissociative to survive all of that. So um, I just walked around a little confused, and um, metaphysics made sense to me. So as I got into it and listened to these teachers, they would say as they walk past me in the hallways, "You're a healer," and I think, I don't think so. I'm a mess. That's what I am.
That's so funny because most healers come from messy background. So, so
So, yeah, that's the beginning. That's how it was.
that's how it was. And so you, one of the things about the author that you had that you were interested in learning more from, that talked about indigo aura rays, and I know these are she popularized these terms, indigo, and then they turn into crystal, and then they turn into all these other things. In just for the listeners, in Buddhism, the term that we use for an ancient, advanced, wise soul that comes into our realm with a mission to help raise consciousness is a toku. So all the lamas that are found based on their Merkaba or their mandala energy frequency is like Yeshua, like the Dalai Lama, like all the other teachers, they are toku. So, but the wonderful thing about is it Tapa that wrote that book? She popularized a concept that has been around for a very, very long time. So now it's got a fresh look and a fresh audience that is attracted to material. So I think there's some other ones too, like Dolores Cannon and others that write about these different aura fields of these ancient Toku people. So you are a Toku. Am I or Indigo, Nedra? Is that what you?
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay,
No,
but
these
that
were
was the book that
children.
drew you in.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the fact that she was speaking about indigo children that were being born at the time in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It wasn't that. It was the discussions, the deep dives of discussions into metaphysics that drew me in, that made sense, that there was this thing called energy back then in the 70s, and like, what is that? And so it made sense to me,
Yeah. So
and I
then you
wanted
got
to
in.
explore it.
Yeah, and so then you got into energy healing.
Yes.
So how did you get into energy healing from studying metaphysics?
I picked up a book, Deepak Chopra's book, called Quantum Healing.
Yes, I read the book.
And I can't say that I read the whole book, but what I did read about it, it just propelled me into seeing other possibilities and understanding, getting a grasp, barely a grasp of what quantum healing might be like, and that the concept that our body mind intelligence would actually be the factor that could substantially or profoundly um, shift the body's frequencies of dis-ease into realigning itself with wellness. That just excited me, and I was propelled forward in exploring that. And I found myself um, just working with the concepts on myself, as well as other people who volunteered. Because I would say, of course, I'm just practicing. I'm trying to figure this out, and it just continued to grow. And that was in the 70s, and then in about 5 years, 6 years, maybe 7 years, I had a better grasp of it. And I understood, for me, that it wasn't about manipulating the energy in a person's body or frequency field. It was learning how to communicate with the body mind intelligence after I'd spoken to the person, to deliver to the body mind intelligence, this is what Joanne wants. She doesn't want to feel toxic every time she's driving behind a school bus. She doesn't want to feel caught in her throat or have a headache. She wants to feel well. And it just continued to work. It continued to work. And the more I got out of my own way, and this was in the 80s, the more it seemed to work. So it just propelled me and inspired me to continue to explore. And then at the late 80s, long story short, a Filipino psychic surgeon
Mhm.
contacted me. His people contacted me and said he wanted me to work with him, not assist him, but work side by side.
Mhm.
I'd never heard what a psychic surgeon. I had never heard the term. I didn't understand what that was. So I went to one of his gatherings and observed him and was floored that he was doing what he was doing, and which was literally he seemed to part the skin
Mhm.
very, I mean, just a light touch over the body. It was
Mhm.
like the body responding and opening, and then there would be manifestations of what apparently were toxic symptoms that he removed from the body,
Mhm.
and then he would run his hand like this over the body, and it would close up, and there would just be this light pink line there. It was really fascinating, and I worked with him for almost 2 years, because I said, well, I'll work with you because it's such a phenomenal experience for
Mhm.
humans
Mhm.
that they don't get what just happened, because it happens in maybe 3 minutes, and they need to, their bodies need energy work to support this.
Mhm.
So that's what I did with it. I did
Mhm.
We did tandem work, and I learned even more than I thought I even knew was available in working with him and understanding energy from that place. And then and so it just has continued. That was by then, that was very early 90s.
Mm. Wow, long journey. Now, Daerick, what got you into energy healing with your
Um,
wife?
well, I've been kind of interested in spirituality. I was exploring my own spirituality, and uh, it was soon. It was actually soon after, within several months after I'd met Nedra. That's a whole nother story. But we met at basically an
Oh.
energy workshop, and
Oh, and like, did you just kind of all of a sudden just feel her energy? How'd you,
yeah,
of
I knew
all the
when she
people
walked in the
there?
room that I was attracted to this woman.
Just went,
Um,
That was the mid 90s.
Mid
mm-hmm,
90s, yes.
mm-hmm.
And I was in love with her after our first date. I knew,
Me too.
You're
I
like,
knew
oh,
we were going to get married.
okay.
Yep. It was,
Okay, so
it was
I have
fast.
to I have to ask about this because I hear this a lot. I actually do wedding flowers on the side, a supplemental income. And I hear a lot of these kind of stories. I don't know what it is, but I attract these kind of clients. Even in my wedding business and even in my hypnosis side practice as well. But a lot of them a lot of them are metaphysical or spiritual, and they end up finding each other in these kind of unusual ways. And they can be in a huge auditorium of like 500 people going through different booths, and it's just like the sees part, and all they see is that person, that one person out of 500 people. And it just sounds so fantastic. It sounds so surreal. So you guys just described the same exact thing a lot of my clients describe as well. So what was it about her? Because I'm sure there's other Asian women walking around. What was it about her that you were attracted to, that in an energy or in a metaphysical convention that drew you to her? I mean, was it like a compass going here, here, here?
That's, I mean, in hindsight, looking back to that first encounter, seeing her, because I was already in the room and saw her walking in the room. Um, in hindsight, I was just drawn immediately to her energy. I felt that immediately, and was for the next 3 days kept trying to get to know her more and more. chasing her around, basically, because
Yeah.
I just felt something. I didn't know all of what it was. I didn't know how connected we were and how much our story was going to intertwine. But I knew that this was somebody I wanted to know more.
Wow, it's very overwhelming gut instinct there. So you met her at a convention, a energy healing convention or metaphysics
It was a
convention?
training, actually, put
Oh, was
on.
it? Okay.
Put on by a gentleman by the name of Sage Hope, called the Celebration Experience. I don't know if he's still doing them anymore, but it was really about energy awareness and starting to see, the things that we do as humans, and some of the blocks and walls we put up, and how to get beyond some of that. So I was there as a facilitator, and Nedra was there as a facilitator. So that's where we kind of met. So yeah, that's a whole nother story that we probably don't have time for, but we within 3 months, I had moved. I was living in Northern California, and she was in Southern California in Idlewild, in a beautiful community a mile high up in the pine trees. And so I moved down to move in with her, and I was having car problems, and my car was overheating. And so I put this thing called stop leak, which is aluminum flakes that if you put into your radiator, it goes to where the hole is in the radiator and stops it. It's a very temporary fix to a cheap fix, because I was broke at the time, a cheap fix to fix the car. And so I put that in there, and I drove around the block, and the car was still steaming, overheating. And I opened up the hood, and I was, looking at it, and the cap blew off.
Ooh.
And all this steaming hot liquid, and these metal flakes went all over me, on my face, my arms, and I was in, a deep shock with it. And thank God I was at the house in the driveway. And I ran. I walked into the house and called Nedra down, because I knew she was a healer, but I didn't know.
Can you heal my car?
Yeah, and I said, I need a healing. And she came down, and when she saw me, I could see this shock on her face, like, oh my God, what happened? Because I didn't see my face. I didn't know how bad it was, but I could see my arms. I could see they were already starting to welt up with burns, starting to bubble up. And so she sat me down on the couch, and she just was about to start working on me, and she stopped, and she said, well, I'm hearing that I can heal you, but I'm also hearing this is an opportunity for you to learn how to heal yourself. What would you like? And through the pain, I was smart enough to say, yes, please. I'll learn. I want to learn. And she guided me. And within 10 minutes, that pain had gone away. And then within 20 to 30 minutes, I could see the redness starting to subside, the welts starting to go down. And within 2 days, pretty much all evidence of that was gone. What should have been scars in a lot of areas was gone, except for one small, I don't know if you can see it, but there's one small scar the size of a pencil eraser on my wrist that I know was left there, so that I would know that this was real, that this really happened, because to me that was miraculous. This was incredible. And from there, I went into a 5-year training under her, almost 24/7.
Well, you live together, so that's 24/7.
I would get woken up at night at 2:00 in the morning and say, okay, you need to work on this person. And one of Nedra's gifts is to be able to see through my eyes, see what I'm doing when I'm energetically working on somebody, and to help correct that, and to share with me what I'm missing, or what blocks are in the way. So the first 6 months of that training was all about me working on myself. I wasn't even allowed to work on anybody else.
Right.
I had to work on myself and get through a lot of my BS in my walls enough
Yeah.
so that I could start working on somebody else. And then it was all volunteer. It was a volunteer clinic where she would often be there with me, kind of watching over. And then at some point, it got to the place where she didn't need to be right there, and she could. We would talk afterwards, and she could see what I had done with the clients, and it was a pretty intense training. It certainly challenged our relationship a few times.
Oh, really? Yeah,
We-
living and working together, a lot of people can't
Yes.
do that. So, but she has a very specialized skill.
Yeah,
So it was also
she
an
does.
opportunity to
And then eventually she taught me how to do it from a distance, to the place where, I started by working, first I was hands-on, but then she had me work, an inch off the body, then a foot off the body, then from across the room. And then pretty soon I was able to do it with, from where we lived up in the mountains to
Right.
somebody down, hours away. And now there's no.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Because you guys bring up two points that I'd like to have clarified. One, Nedra taught you, and she has the ability to have clear intuition. Your third eye is really open. You have really clear intuition, so you're able to kind of like pick up the subtle instructions from other spiritual beings or from source. And you also one of the things it sounded like that you're working with him at the time on doing was to kind of clear up the throat chakra so that he wouldn't hold himself back to kind of speaking, because those two are connected, that spiritual insight and then being able to just pick up that energy instruction and just kind of say it naturally, like, oh, I'm getting this, try this. So that seems to be something that you are really, really skilled at doing, Nedra. Can you tell people what that is like so that they don't go crazy if it happens to them?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I didn't teach Dearick that.
Okay.
So
So
let me.
when you get insight into, okay, well, I see this, you need to do this, you need to do that, where does that come from?
Oh, you mean when we were reviewing?
Yeah, when she was training me, when you were training me.
When we were reviewing what Dearick was doing on clients, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and when he was working on clients and you were seeing him do certain things and you're like, oh, you got to do it this way, I'm seeing it this way, et cetera, et cetera. Where did you get that clarity from?
I'm clairvoyant.
There's the answer. Yeah.
I'm clairsentient.
There you go. So all the
to travel back to where he was and see what he did. And that's what we would review.
Okay, so it's, some people say that's your intuition. You're having a clear channel, intuitive channel to pick up those subtle
I don't call it my intuition.
You don't call it, what do you call it?
Clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient.
Okay, so the clairs.
Yeah, just what I said. Being able to travel back at a given point in time, given the client or the student that I'm working with, and see because they want me to see, and in that given agreement, I'm able to see what's happening and ask them questions about why they did what they did.
Yeah.
And then bring them to the place of, when you stopped here, you left, there was still more for you to hold the note about.
Right. So for both of you guys, is this a skill that you guys teach in your courses?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, but you're working on it.
We'll get there. We're not in a hurry to teach this, but we know that we'll probably get there. We'll probably be teaching it. We've just got so much going on that it's kind of lower on the scale, on the priority list.
It will come. It will come. But so these are things to look forward to as you guys evolve in your teaching to the public. So let's get to the questions. I'm getting to the questions about the quantum healing. So can you describe what distant quantum healing is? What is, because for me, for Buddhists, there is no distance. It's all in the mind. But for others, they're like, of course there's a distance. So from here to there, there's a distance from here to another state and to another country. It's all a matter of perception. So can you describe what distant quantum healing is to people?
So I'll describe what our I'll describe what my work is. So when I use the word distant, I use it so that people know that I don't have to be in person, because I agree there's no distance barrier at all to energy work. It doesn't matter. I work with people when I'm in a plane, when they're in a plane, around the world. That it no longer comes into play for me, but people need to know, oh, he can work from a distance. So I do use that term so that they know that they don't have to travel to Hawaii in order to work with me. And the work, I mean, much like Nedra described about herself, about how the more she got out of the way, the more effective she was. That's what she taught me. How to get out of my way. How was I in my way of allowing this energy? So when I work with somebody, I really am delivering that frequency. It's not my frequency. It's what is, when they come to me, on a phone call or whatever, when they come to me for healing, they give me a list of what they want to work on. They give me their goals, basically. And from that place, their higher self or the universe or whatever that combination is, that frequency will, when I'm working with that client from a distance, from my home, wherever they are, that comes through me. It's not my energy. It comes through me and it's delivered to their body, mind, intelligence. And then their body, mind, intelligence takes that and says, "Oh, I know what to do with this. I see what Joanne is wanting now," and takes that energy and starts to do what it sees it needs to do. Now, because I'm not manipulating energy, because I'm not doing anything, it's a process. So I always work with a client for a minimum of a month. We do 3 treatments a week because it needs to be continued to do until the body, mind, intelligence really gets it on its own. Now, whether sometimes they're feeling 30% better and their body, mind, intelligence now is getting it and it can heal them on their own. Sometimes they get 50% better. Sometimes it's 70, 90, whatever. But my goal is never to try to heal somebody to 100%. My goal is always to be that vessel that is delivering this frequency that their body, mind, intelligence can start to reinterpret and re-understand so it can heal itself. So I'm not healing them, their body's healing them, but I'm helping
facilitating
them something that they've forgotten or that they've gone a different direction on their body has.
Right. You're the facilitator. They do their own self-healing. So, yes, I completely understand that. Now, what are the emotional and spiritual reasons that may cause unease in the body in the first place that you typically find in your clients?
You want to jump into that one? You want me to answer that?
You're on a roll.
Okay. I pretty much always see a connection to physical, emotional, and spiritual. I may end up working more on certain areas or focusing more on those areas only because they put that as their goal. But when I'm delivering that frequency, it's also looking at whatever's going on in their body that's emotionally or spiritually may be connected to this. So I often see when I'm watching the energy, when I'm watching it working, I often see, oh, it's working on the emotional aspect. I can see it's working on some old belief or some old fear or some old pattern that's going on that is in the way of their physical healing or may have contributed to it. I don't know the story of it. That's not my gift to know exactly what's going on. And I know that there's so much going on in the body far beyond what I'm seeing when this energy is happening. But I always trust that their body mind intelligence is going to take that and do what it needs to do. And yeah, sometimes it is releasing some sort of emotional pattern or a layer of that emotional pattern. Oftentimes there's layers released, and then my clients will have insights that their own breakthroughs as a result of maybe a layer kind of being released, but then they're able to take it to a much deeper place on their own. So it's pretty exciting to see. It's exciting to hear back from them. What happened for them and how things are changing in their life. So there's definitely a combination of that.
Yeah, I wonder what the common belief pattern or conditioning that most people deal with, because like when you're teaching this in your classes, your clients and also your students' clients will be getting clients, and many of them will exhibit similar patterns. So I wonder what the top is there a top 3 common ones that you typically find? Like, I know you don't go too deep into how it came about, but afterwards, after the healing, do the clients start working on the issues that cause the unease in the body in the first place and kind of start resolving those issues? Do you hear anything back from that?
It's all over the place because I get clients that come to me that are, they're just desperate and they're looking for physical healing, and they may not be ready to look at, the depth of, what else is contributing to this.
Right.
And I get other clients that want to see, what is that? What is my part in this? And so from an emotional spiritual place, I mean, I could say trauma, but so many things can be interpreted as trauma, whether it's real abuse, sexual abuse, or whether it was just getting yelled at and that person was so sensitive that they interpreted that as some sort of trauma that started to change things within them or started to create certain beliefs or fears. And sometimes those are connected to past lives and past stuff coming through. So I don't dive into that. That's more of Nedra's area.
Oh, Nedra, that's my next question for you. So a lot of my clients, a lot of other clients of other modalities, what they typically find is that their clients' body pains reflect unresolved family issues. And it could be in this lifetime or even other lifetimes that they have had. Have you run across this in your work? And
Yes.
can you give us an example of one in maybe like this lifetime where they had to resolve, and maybe it's something that they carried on from a previous lifetime?
I actually call that a background life reading. And typically what when a person finds that they want one is, let's say they're very successful in the world, and they're able to uh, run a good size organization, whether that's small, medium, or large. And they find to their frustration that there's some pattern that seems familiar in some way that crops up in their life, what seems like with no logical reason. But when it does crop up, they feel completely different than their empowered self. They either get agitated or they get fearful. Fearful is a big one.
So they're triggered.
They're triggered.
They're triggered.
And they don't know how to get out of it. And they've tried different things and they don't know what it is. So that's where a background life reading typically is very helpful. And I start with the client, and what happens is I find myself traveling to different points of their timeline, typically going backwards. Not all the time, but it doesn't matter to me. I just go with wherever I'm going. And I make a point of saying, okay, look at when you were 27. Look at, okay, now I'm at 23 and now I'm at 17. And I'll share with them what it feels like, what I'm being shown, what I'm seeing as that 17-year-old. And then I go all the way, I find myself all the way back to infancy. And I travel into another lifetime. It's not necessarily the last lifetime.
Right.
That's why I call it a background life. And it becomes really fascinating. So let's say someone comes to me because they have a constant shoulder problem. And they just don't know. They've gone to the doctors, they don't know what it is. They've gone to Dearick, it's helped a little bit, but it's still there.
Still coming back, huh?
Yeah. And so then in the past life, what I see, all of a sudden I see, and this is an example that has been written about, so I feel free to share this, but in this past life, in this background life, I see an old world energy, and it's like 1200th century. And there's a line of people patiently waiting outside this old house like structure, and they're waiting to go and waiting to be seen or something. And then I zoom in and I see a person standing, and it's a woman. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that my client is a woman, but in this case, it's a woman. And she's doing this. So I go around to the front, and she's an herbalist, and she's grinding the herbs like this. And it's all day long. She's doing this. And it's really fascinating that amongst other things, when I come back and explain this to her, as well as what is actually really bothering her, they're able to correlate it, and there's a freedom in that. And of course she says, yes, that's my shoulder has been bothering me, and then of course it clears up.
So did the consciousness of that client want to acknowledge that lifetime where she was a healer making medicine?
Yeah, she felt very relieved. That's typically what happens.
They just want acknowledgement.
Well, she wanted more than that, but it helped her understand why she had the challenges in this life, and that it was related to never ever having children in that past life, and at the end of her life in that background life, she had regrets. Was this all worth it? And not being able to see all the people she helped, just at the end of her life, wondering if it was all worth it, and that she didn't have children. And in fact, in this lifetime, she didn't have any children, and she's like feeling like unfulfilled. And the more she thinks about it, the more her shoulder is bothering her. So then I suggest that they do another round of sessions with Dearick.
Yeah.
Because now he understands something that he can trace.
Yeah. That's really that is really important, because So many people get these clients who have gone rounds with medical doctors and
Yes.
x-rays and psychologists and you name it, whatever the insurance company is going to pay for, they do it. And they still get the same pain
Yes.
coming back. And they're like, we've
Yes.
we've done everything. We have nothing for you. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, and they're like, well, technically, according to the X-ray, according to all the mammograms, according to all the things that we've done to these clients, you got nothing in there. There's nothing there that's causing you pain. This, and yet you
Yes.
still feel it. And so you get these, I call them X-file clients, like where you don't know what the deal is, and oftentimes, no matter the modality you use to see the different past lives or future lives or other lives outside of this lifetime, it comes to something that happened in those lifetimes. And so so it begs the question, okay, so there is healing needing to be done in this lifetime to heal the other lifetimes that have unresolved stuck energy in them that's tied to this one.
That they've brought with them to resolve or to reevaluate or look at and decide if they want to change it.
So in the case of that, what was the outcome for this person? Did they resolve it or did they change?
I'm trying to remember. Just a moment. Uh, yes.
Or did you get a follow-up from the client? What happened?
Yeah. Usually in a background life reading, there's 4 sessions. So the first session is the reading, and then the follow-ups are, how are you doing with applying that? Because it seems so simple,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy for them to just forget,
Mm-hmm.
and then go back into their old pattern.
Yeah.
So I create a package that what are you doing with it right now? And okay, now what are you going to do with it next until the next time we meet, so that you can really therapeutically exercise new muscles to be
Mm-hmm.
created, and understand the pattern, recognize it when it starts to come up.
Right. Right. Really, that's really fascinating work. Yeah, sometimes healing requires some background research and then some maintenance. So
Yes,
it's like a 3-step process. So
yes, it
Yeah.
is.
yeah, so let me ask you this question. So as a facilitator of energy healing, who does the healing? Is it the consciousness within the client or is it the client themselves that does it?
Well, it's both, but
Both?
yes,
Is it an agreed thing?
I would say, well, first of all, obviously for us, the client wants it, or else they would not be with us. So
Right.
that's an assumption. And then the other part is to communicate with the body, mind, intelligence, the consciousness of that individual, to say this is what she wants done. And and the assumption is also that we work with it more than an assumption, but for the
Mhm.
sake of this conversation, the assumption is that they want to uncover the suppression they've had in allowing their authentic potential to come forth.
Well,
And
that's a common thing. What do you find in many clients that they hold themselves back from their fulfilling their potential in this life? Why do they hold themselves back so much? It's
I
very
would
common.
say, I mean, of course, there's a lot of reasons, but I would say if I were to generalize, it's a result of residual energy and possibly background life.
Mm.
And the residual energy can go all the way from to childhood, and the fears that come up and get embedded in a person as a result of, I told you not to go outside, not to, now you got a bee sting. If you just
Mm.
listened to what I say, you wouldn't have got the bee sting. And so in the child's mind, that interprets to something, whatever that is, but it's like it could interpret to, I need to be obedient to this person for the rest of my life. or I need to be
Oh.
obedient to authority for the rest of my life, or I need to be isolated and kept safe because I could be hurt. And those things could be seeded and not necessarily come to fruition until decades later.
Well, let me ask you this, as a parent, because you sound like me sometimes. I told you not to do that because this was going to happen, but you didn't listen and this happened. Now you're crying about it. Listen and learn. So for the parent that says that, how could they say it differently to not imprint this fear?
Yes, and that's something that we try to talk to parents about.
Yeah, I'm listening. So
Okay.
what if you could
Well,
talk to
first of all,
parents, what do you tell
understand
them?
that this child is more than just a child. It is a being that is downloading and registering what you have to say to them.
Mm.
And so you need to be mindful of how you say it. And it could be the same thing that you're saying without the energy of you need to listen to everything I say.
So take the
Because you
charge out.
get hurt.
Right. So like
And
remove the
instead,
charge.
remove the charge.
Remove the charge.
Say it from being present in the present moment and recognize that the child is in fear and is in pain, and comfort that. And then say, okay, so, what did we learn? What did you learn? I mean, you and just guide the child based on what you know how to do.
Taking that energy out is so important because, for instance, if we see our child running out in the street, we're going to yell.
Yeah.
We're in fear that they're going to die.
Yeah.
So, when we get them out of the street, don't ever do that again. We have all this fear and this charge and adrenaline.
Oh my God.
That really is our fear that we end up downloading into that child.
Right.
And, it happens. And sometimes you just need to correct it. Sometimes you need to go back, as Nedra said, and then have that other conversation.
A loving conversation. You can have it in a stern way. Just take a breath. Ask for guidance. As parents, we don't think about that, especially when we're envisioning the child in trauma. And they're not, but we're envisioning that could have happened. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And there's so much charge to that because we love our children so much. We never want them to be hurt.
Yeah.
And we're learning too as parents.
Learning. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example for myself as a parent. So my daughter is 6, but when she was 3 at the swimming pool, she has a floaty, and I tell her, always wear your floaty. You're not ready to swim on your own yet. You don't know how to swim. You're going to drown. And she wanted to impress the 6-year-olds, the older kids. So she took her floaty off and jumped in the deep end of the pool. And she was holding on to it, and I walked by and she's like, "Hi, Mommy." And I looked down and I didn't even think about what was happening. And I said, "What are you doing without your floaty?" She's like, "I'm going to swim." And she let go and she started to sink. And this happened in literally like a 1-second thing. But it felt like eons. And somehow I'm screaming. I'm like having an outer body experience. I'm screaming, going, "Who is that woman that is screaming?" That's how I know I'm having an outer body experience. And all of a sudden this hand comes out in front of me, which I'm completely disconnected from my body because I'm still thinking about this person screaming. This hand comes out and pulls her out. And it was my hand, but I was so disassociated from my body that mechanically somehow my hand decided to do what it did, because it wasn't my brain, because my brain was thinking about the screaming lady who's, what is going on? And I told her, I said, "I told you not to go in the pool without your floaty on because you're going to drown." And that's exactly what happened. And it took a while for her to register, and then she registered, and then she started crying. And she keeps reminding me every time we go to the pool, "Mommy, remember when you saved me from drowning because I didn't listen to you?" She remembered that experience very, very well. But how in that situation or similar situations, how can a parent take the charge out of that incident so it's not so memorable and traumatizing? Because my 6-year-old now still remembers that like yesterday because of how I reacted at the moment.
Well, there's two things. There's one is the freak out of the parent.
Oh yeah.
That's a separate thing that we could talk about for a long time. And the second part of it is the child releasing herself from the floaties, and then you seeing her starting to drop down into the water, not drown, but drop down. That's the truth. She wasn't drowning yet. She was dropping down into the water. So without the charge thing, which of course is a complicated factor, but without that, speaking to parents, you just dive in the freaking pool and go get your daughter,
Yeah.
and you bring her up and you go, okay, and then bring her out and pray and breathe and, give her love. And she's not thinking of anything.
Yeah.
She let go. She did. So then you have to explain it to her in a calm and loving and supportive, yet grounded and parenting way. So, I understand there's complications because I actually had a similar experience.
Oh, did you really? The
Yes.
public pool. Oh
So
boy.
I'm not just wagging my finger at you.
Yeah.
And I was cursing and yelling at the lifeguard that was in the pool talking to another lifeguard, and my child, who was 3 years old,
What is it about 3?
I
They
don't
all
know,
know something.
3 years old in the pool, and he was maybe 5 feet away from them, and I was screaming on the other side of a fence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing more than scream. I was cursing like, oh my God, and they, she pulled him up.
Yeah.
And I was freaked out. So I understand there's two things going on here,
Yeah.
There's the child, and then there's the freaked out parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's something that we're just gonna have to work through.
Now you can talk to her and say, I freaked out.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you didn't drown. You weren't drowning. You were just dropping in the water. Drowning is a different experience.
Yeah.
But what I do want you to learn from it, and you clearly learn. So if we can find a way to heal this so that it's not a big deal from now on, and that you've learned, so that's the next step. Is to have that conversation so it doesn't keep looping in her mind. And she doesn't continue to expand that loop, and that whatever the association is, to say to her in whatever way that you are asked for guidance, to say, let's put this to rest. I know you got the point. I know, and I got a big point. I learned. I was afraid, and you probably were feeling some of that.
Yeah.
And that's not that. You don't need to feel that anymore.
Yeah. So even however it transpires or gets resolved, you can come back after and be like, okay, what did we both learn from it?
Yes.
Or what did we learn from it? Okay. And just taking it as a life lesson. Let's see what we learned from this. And go from that approach. Okay, good advice for parents, because a lot of parents ask questions about, how do you stay so zen when the kids are really tearing at you? And that's a good practice to do is, well, try to get your composure in the moment, but if you can't, that's understandable. Circle back and go through it. Circle back and go through it as, what did we learn from this?
And own your part first. Say, when that happened and I was yelling at you, whatever's true for you. Don't
Yeah.
child will know. But I was yelling, I'm sorry. I get that I overreacted, or whatever the truth is for you. I felt like this, make it simple, and
Yeah.
absolutely do not create it in a way that the child starts to feel like responsible for you feeling bad. You know,
Yeah. That's a good one, because it's the charge that creates those
yes,
memories that get
yes, it's
stuck in the body.
yes,
Yeah, it's the charge. So if I instead of freaking out like I did, I'll just pull her out and just be like, okay, quick Zen moment. Okay, I told you not to do this, and now you sank. Go take a break. Go sit time out, and we'll talk about what we learned. Mommy has to go to the
Yeah.
bar first to come back. I don't know. I have to go
Mama's
get.
going to have a double margarita first.
I'll talk to you after I get back to my Zen. I'm gonna have a second round of the barbecue. I'll come back to you about that. We'll talk about this. But then
Yes, and of course you're also monitoring that the child is not in trauma. That's
yeah,
a
because
thing.
they pick
Right.
up the trauma from the charge of how you reacted. Because otherwise they'd be
Yes.
like, I don't know what the difference between doing this and doing this is, until
Right.
the reaction gives
Yes.
them the clue of how, oh, that was really bad.
Yeah.
And then it imprints on the body. Okay, I get what you're saying. Very, very good. So you hear that, everybody? Parents out there, please work on that. Okay. So
Give yourselves love too, parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
You
all
know,
have our moments.
We all have our moments.
oh yes, they
We
can
can own them later, you know,
can
if we
own
don't
it.
own them then.
Yeah, we'll have the rest of our life to own all once they move out of the house, to kind of own all the different ways, but try our very best at the moment to take out the charge, find a little Zen way of dealing with it, and then when you're ready, come back and talk about it
With love.
with love. I love that. Very,
Yes.
very, very good. I will practice that. I haven't really had those moments very often, but the next one that comes through, I'm sure it will, because I also have a boy who is 2, and he likes to throw things, and he has baby anger issues. so I'm sure that will be testing our patience as well. So we'll work on that one. Okay, I have another question. I found that some of my quantum clients are living healthy lives and they have a good family relationships. However, they still have anxiety, depression, and panic attacks about society. So what recommendations do you two have about finding that, I don't know if it's an aloha spirit or a connection to source through turbulent times in society?
Well, for me, it comes back to my belief, and my belief is metaphysical, and it helps me to understand from my belief
Mm-hmm.
that that pre-utero, I was this spirit who was loosely architecting points in my life to experience, and with the purpose of evolution, with the purpose of evolving my soul. And so when I feel overwhelmed or anxious, and I can feel overwhelmed and anxious, and I can feel depressed, um, I give myself X time, depending upon the intensity and the bandwidth of being able to give myself X time. I give myself X time to just be with that. And Dearick respects it, and, you know, gives me space. And, you know, when he needs space, I give him space, but I give myself X time. And in that X time, I allow myself to feel the anxiety, the depression, the whatever it is, and actually feel into that space. Now, I'm telling you what I do. That not necessarily what I would suggest for someone else, but it's what I do to understand. Yeah, I get anxious, I get depressed, I get angry, and so what does that feel like? Why am I doing that? Not why am I doing that, but, you know, to look at it from an event point. Why am I doing it from a
kind of like a learning point? Right.
learning point?
So is this like a coping skill that you use and that you you advise people if they want to use it, this is how you do it. Maybe if they're asking for how do I deal with what kind of coping skills can you suggest for clients when they're feeling upset about society, because they're not going to change society. Society's going to do what society does.
I'm going back to what I was saying. It's seeing that we are all evolving and we all have our unique way of evolving. So for me, that's what I'm going through. And why am I doing that? I'm I'm exploring my feelings and seeing what it has led me to, and somehow that helps me shift. It helps me see myself when I'm sitting in it and exploring it. After I do that, I step out of that. There's an energy field that it is in, because it's not everywhere.
Yeah.
And I step out of it, and then I look back and realize, okay, that's an event I've created. Do I need to continue to create that? Do I want to allow my recognition of what I've learned?
Right.
And eventually I say, yes, I want to allow my recognition of what I've learned. And then I shift. So not sure, is there a way?
Dearick, how do you cope with anxiety from or depression about society?
I think one thing that is helpful when I see that I don't typically experience that myself, but I see it with a lot of clients about just society. And often those clients that are experiencing that are highly sensitive, and they often have levels of empathic abilities, or even other abilities, and they're starting to feel into what's happening with other people or what could happen.
They're feeling into the collective.
Yeah, sometimes they're feeling into the collective. Sometimes it's projection of what could happen or what might happen if this and that happens.
Okay, or they're perceiving the fear of the collective.
Sometimes it's happening. So when when I'm working with my clients, it is about helping them go deeper within themselves. So what I see is when they try to breathe through that, they usually, this is similar to what Nedra was saying, but they usually stop themselves at some place because they're afraid, if I let go and go deeper and see what the deeper truth is for me, that I'm going to fall apart, or I'm not going to be able to handle it,
or I'm going to die.
I can't keep it together. I got to keep it together because everybody else is looking at me.
I need to hold on and not let this overtake me. But often
is that more common in men or women?
I don't know. I can only say that from a biased place, and the biased place is probably 70% of my clients are women and 30% are men. So yes, it's more in women, but that's only because I have more clients that are women. So I can't really tell you that that's more common.
What do you think, Nedra? Is it more common in men or women, this the suppression of dealing with emotions that arise about angst against society or other things? You think it's both? Yeah. Where do you guys think that comes from?
Men deal with it differently than women, but it's still they're still affected.
But if you can breathe down and go see where that stop is that Nedra was talking about, where she takes the time to see what that is, and allow yourself to breathe even deeper into your body, allow yourself to bring your breath down to your second chakra or somewhere in there, and hold that and feel that connection within yourself, and then feel that connection with the earth, and by letting go and letting down the walls more. It sounds counterintuitive, like you're gonna just fall apart, but actually people typically will be less affected
Mm.
by all the energy out that they're being surrounded with or tapping into, and they begin to tap into that deeper part of themselves. So it's just another way of saying what Nedra was saying, of really exploring and allowing yourself to explore deeper within
Mm.
yourself and seeing where is that wall, and what okay, why am I stopping here? What is this about that I'm stopping at? And
Right.
can I breathe deeper? Is there more for me to see? And
Yeah.
asking questions.
That's really good suggestion for coping skills that people can pick up. Uh, is it good to combine those coping skills with some kind of exercise, like hiking or walking the dog or meditating or gardening? Can you, because some people need things to do. They can't just sit there and channel the energy through all the chakras. They need some people are busybodies. Do you recommend anything that they can combine with that activity
Well, it really depends upon the person,
in
but
person?
yes, that can be really, really helpful, like taking a hike or
Mm,
going for a swim or just going for a walk, ideally in a natural environment, or even just crafting or even
mm,
just
yeah.
music. So there are different things that actually help shift the individual. So, can you shift first out of the intensity of the depth of the depression or the anxiety or the fear enough uh, to help you see it differently? So, it could be a practice that could be done before, perhaps, so that you have the space to see it easier, um, without the intensity.
It's another. We're going back to that getting out that charge, taking away the
Yes,
charge.
yes.
Because there is, I mean, you're right. There is a charge that people, whether it's to projection or the picking it up or whatever, that they are feeling about their anxiety or depression or whatever they're feeling about society and what's going on in society, and not necessarily society, but also about, uh, you know, unease in their family and loved ones situations, because not everybody has family or loved ones who have ideal situations in their life. What are a good coping skills so that sensitive people don't take on those issues into their body?
Well, I think the other thing to remember is, um, especially with your community that understands energy, is that if you already know that you're going into a group where historically the energy is kind of depressed, so to speak,
Hmm.
describe it however you want, it's depressed. You want to be the tuning fork that holds the note that's higher. You don't want to go in and attune yourself
To that energy.
to that depressed energy.
Very
So you don't
good.
have to be the clown. You don't have to be responsible for uplifting them, but you can be your own lighthouse. You can choose not to attune to that energy and see them differently. That's your opportunity, is to see
Yeah.
differently, that okay, they're having this experience. What can I appreciate about them? Why am I here? How
Yeah.
can I enjoy or be myself while they're having that experience? I don't need to attune to that. And I
Right.
don't need to judge them for it
Yeah.
either.
As soon as you start judging that, you start to attune to it.
Yeah, you start to go into their
Yeah.
energy. Yes,
To
yes, that is.
understand that they're having their own experience, and there may be
Mhm.
amazing reasons for them to, from a spiritual place, for them to be experiencing what they're experiencing, and that's really none of your business. That's
Yeah,
their
that's a life
experience.
lesson.
But how can you be in that situation, enjoy the other parts of them, or the gathering that you're at,
Right.
and still hold your note and stay with your own note?
Right. In Buddhism, because I have to kind of tie some of these concepts to the Buddhist listeners. In Buddhism, what we call that, and people have to remind themselves about this all the time because this is a common theme that people forget, is tuning into other people's energy and then making it that their heart song. And it's not even their stuff to carry around. So it's the concept of stop looking out there for your bliss and start looking in here for your bliss. Stop expecting out there to smile, but you smile. And as because you're smiling, everybody else out there will smile back. Same thing. So I really like that. So, you know,
I want to add one more piece in here because I do see a lot of people that have anxiety, and it's not always about their sensitivities, and it's not always about other things going on. Sometimes there's physical things, there's physical conditions that create the feeling of anxiety, that create that rapid heartbeat, that create those things. So sometimes there's actually physical conditions that can be addressed that will shift that considerably, especially if they find they're having that out of the blue. There's nothing they can see connected.
Is it like a medical thing that they can see a doctor about as
They
well?
could see a doctor sometimes.
So when you say conditions, do you mean symptoms or?
I mean that, for instance, a condition like Hashimoto's. A lot of people who have Hashimoto's also, one of the symptoms is anxiety that comes on, and as a result of that condition, can produce things like that within a body. So it triggers some, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
It triggers some response in their body that comes out as that. So,
Yeah.
there's other things to look at too. And yeah, sometimes doctors can help, or sometimes people come to energy healers that can help with that can help them shift that from that place.
Let me ask you something about energy healers, because healers do exist. Not everybody gets the privilege to experience or engage with healers, but natural healers do exist. And sometimes natural healers get to a point where their presence alone, their aura field alone is healing. Do you guys get to that? Do you guys get, I mean, I know you guys are practicing the modality with your body, with your mind, but is it just the aura field that's doing the healing? I just saw a flicker on the screen after I answered that.
I'll jump into that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that their presence just
It's healing.
is healing. When you talk about just a natural healer, I'm somebody that had to learn how to do this. I'm somebody that that had some natural abilities to potentially do the work I'm doing, but it also took a hell of a lot of work and a lot of training for me to bring that out. It wasn't just, I just woke up and I could do what I do. So yeah, I think it's like, you could have a child that has a natural ability to be a concert pianist, but if they don't get the right training, and if they're not willing to dedicate
And they practice the muscle, huh?
practice the muscle, then they may never get, they may be enjoy piano playing, but they probably won't get to the concert level pianist unless they get, whatever level training. That's me. That's not that I'm a concert level pianist. But I needed to put in the work. I needed to put in a lot of training. I needed exceptional teacher to help me and guide me along the way.
Well, you married her. You did marry. Now,
Yes.
you just weren't married. Now, let me ask you, Deidre, do you get like friends and families just hold my sick dog, just hold my sick dog? I don't care what you do. Do you get some of that? Where
I used to.
Okay, you used to. And what happened?
First 10 or 15 years, I don't emanate from that place anymore.
Now you're trying to teach people to learn how to heal themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Next step. Yeah. I asked that question because this is something that I've moved on, and I teach people how to. I always kind of give people, well, let me give you kind of a 30-second meditation that can help you address that issue, or 10-second modality, and I'll just give them a little tool that they can use and anytime they want to. And often when I used to work in the office, I would have friends who would have nosebleeds and like, I gotta find Vaughn, and they would find me and they say hi and walk away, and the nosebleeds would stop. I'm like, what did you want? And they're like, oh no, I just wanted to look at you. I gotta go now. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I don't know what is the deal, but I've had friends who would call me and it's like dire. Their cat is dying. It's in his last limb. Rush over like it's the end of the world. I swing by with my smoothie, going, what's going on? And they're like, oh, the cat's running around again. Yeah, you can go home now. I'm like, well, I'm already here, so let's hang out. So, but this is very common for people who have a healing energy. So, for people who have a healing energy for small things, naturally, um, they may get this as well from people. And so what do you say to those people to, okay, well, try to leave those people with an advice to learn how to heal themselves so that they're not reliant on the healer's time and energy all the time for these little things? Do you have anything for those people? Because we get a lot of healers watching the show.
Just a second. Nothing comes up.
Nothing comes up. All right, so it's experience. Well, you guys, I will say this, just kind of like your example of your client who had a past life where she had her arm or shoulder hurt because she was doing all this healing work and this grinding work and then wondering in the end of her life, was it worth it to do all this work and not have anything to show for it in her personal life? It's a balance. It's a balance. So I would recommend, it is a balance that if you come into that natural healing ability in your aura and this is what happens, then if it comes into your space, then fine. But there is a balance because you do have your own life, you do have your own responsibilities, and you do get to live your life the way you want as well. So it's too much service is less service for you, as well as too much your service to yourself is less service to others that you have obligation to also provide that tuning fork for. So that's my recommendation. So I have another question. Moving on to another question. This is one about folklores. Okay, so there are a lot of folklores about planet Earth being a living being, and we are all part of her body. And I know this is not a folklore. I know that she's conscious, and so does Buddhism, and so does science. But there are people who believe that she is not conscious at all, and she's separate from us. So, what are your thoughts on that, and how can we be good caretakers of this lush garden that we have the privilege to live on?
Well, that is the $60,000 question. And the guidance that we get is that it comes back to us evolving. And in our evolution, we will experience more and more inner peace and well-being, and a desire to share that inner peace and well-being with others as well as the earth. And that is how we will care for the earth more and more. The message is, let down your walls and expand, and then repeat and repeat, because humans tend to create self-imposed walls, and within those walls they feel or have an association of comfort. And then when they let down the walls, they experience a a sense of freedom But the longer that stays out there, the more they start to feel discomfort with the fear of the unknown. So it's suggested to us to switch the concepts. And instead of feeling comfort within the walls, feel discomfort. And instead of feeling discomfort and fear of the unknown with the space, feel comfort and realize and allow and welcome that we have the opportunity to expand and evolve. And once again, the evolution creates a self-awareness, and we become more organically selective of how we care for our bodies and our minds, and how we care for other people. And that expands.
I love that. That's a great answer about being good caretakers of Mother Earth. Now, this next question, I'm going to ask Daerick. This one's a space age question. Now we're going to go off planet, outside of Earth. So I've spoken to a few Hawaiian mystics and shamans of various modalities from around the world who believe humanity is going to become intergalactic in this lifetime and will be in contact, or the next lifetime, and will be in contact with ancient star beings. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, when do you think other sentient beings in the cosmos are going to, communicate?
I think there's a lot of energy towards helping humans awaken. So that we don't destroy this planet and don't destroy civilization. And there is a lot of support from the energies of this planet, as well as what some people call extraterrestrial beings or more enlightened civilizations that are communicating to many of us in various ways. What Nedra just shared, the messages that there's communication for us to awaken, and that in this lifetime, I don't know if we're going to become intergalactic, but I think, and what I feel is we're going to have a lot more communication. More and more people will have more communication with those beings that will help to guide us towards our own evolution, our own awakening.
Yeah. I talked to a lot of Buddhists, monks and nuns who continue to say that it is the people who are reaching for higher levels of consciousness who are in the energy field to be able to communicate and have communication with these higher beings, because they are ancient and they have been working this energy work for a very long time. They are really high frequencies. So if you want to communicate with civilizations that are much more ancient and of higher frequency, you must at the very least be, in Buddhism terms, fifth dimensional awareness or above, at least radiate at a certain level to be able to communicate. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense to you.
Yeah, and all that, we see so many movies that are fun, that are about, other civilizations coming to destroy us and take us over. But, that's fun, but in another sense, it's pretty silly, because they are so advanced. If they wanted to take us over, they could have done that
millennia
ago. And yes, they're out there, and yes, they're here to help us, not to do some silly thing that wouldn't be of any benefit to them.
Yeah, I mean, in my perception, and sometimes Buddhists talk about different sci-fi topics just outside of their own studies, just for fun, based on what we know. And what we have to offer is, like you two, the Aloha friendship, the kindred spirits, the communication and sharing of wisdom, knowledge, etc. Because technology, we're not going to be sharing technology. We're not going to be sharing these 3D physical forms, because they have very advanced technology that already has done this a long time ago. So what I think, and what many Buddhist monks and nuns think we have to share is that's friendship. So, um, you know, one last question. So you two have a 7,000 people wait list. Okay. And I've spoken to a lot of different modalities and different ways in which we can connect to, in Buddhism, we call it crystalline or Christ consciousness or source or universe, whatever you want to call it, and do energy healing. But I have not heard of a 7,000 people waitlist just to be able to attend the courses. So will you guys be offering courses on DVDs, books, a subscription basis, some kind of pre-recording? I mean, can you give some people some insight on what to look out for in the near future?
I think to clarify that wait list a little bit, we offer different services. On one of the services we offer, there's a 7,000 person wait list, and we've had to turn it into a lottery for who gets chosen for that service. Other services have a month-long wait list or 2 months long.
That's still a long wait list.
Yeah, we're pretty blessed that people find us, and so
I think one of the things we can share is that we are starting next month or this month. We're starting to create larger group healings, so that we can include more people in the healing groups that we have. So that's expanding our services to more people. And in terms of courses and that sort, we don't have anything planned right now. It's down the line, and we've got so many other things going on. We are also in the midst of remodeling and expanding our residence here to go from one um, secure cabana to 5 secure cabanas, and it's taking a lot of attention.
Yeah.
That. So
to be able to allow, and the reason for that is to be able to allow for people to come for healing retreats and mastermind retreats and things like that. So we're being driven to expand to allow more people to come here as well and feel the energy that we connect with here in nature, which is
wonderful.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful place in Hawaii.
Which island?
On the big island of
On
Hawaii,
the big island.
on the volcano of Kilauea, and we have 15 acres of beautiful rainforest here. So
hopefully go visit Pali. Yeah, go visit Pali. So
yes, we're at the throne of Pele here.
Yeah, we're at the throne of Pali. I love her, by the way. She's great. She's very sassy. Wow. Well, there's a lot to look forward to. I do have the feeling that you two will eventually get to the point that you're going to be teaching your wisdom and your knowledge and your skills. So, and that's something that I hear constantly from a lot of different instructors of different modalities, is that they're being called to expand their healing retreats and to start kind of multiplying themselves, because the volume is too big.
I should say that we are doing that, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we have been doing that for free via an application called Clubhouse Mobile Drop-In, and unfortunately it's only for people who use iPhones right now, and it's still in beta.
Still in a beta. It's a new social platform, and it's audio.
What's the name of it? What's the name of it for people to hear? Clubhouse. Do you hear that, guys?
Drop-In. Clubhouse Mobile Drop-In, but you have to have an iPhone, and you have to be invited in by a member who has your contact information. So what people do is they go to Clubhouse, they go to the application store, app store, they fill it out, they grab their username, and when they do that, Clubhouse then has the ability to see their contact list, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and then they notify current members, and they say, Joanne has just applied for Clubhouse. Do you want to let her in?
Right.
And so then you get in. And these rooms are live stream. You're not allowed to record. It's all in the moment. And we do rooms every week where we call mentoring. The heart-centered practitioners and coaches, light workers, energy workers, and we teach how for them to move forward in their work.
Love it. Oh, that's great. Well, before I close out, do you two have a last message for everyone?
Wake up. It's time.
It is time.
You
to
know,
wake
wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're meant to serve, whether it's just you or one person or a million people, it's time. Just take what you've got and be yourself. No pretense. No pretense is needed. But what is wanted is your true self.
Let down your walls, expand, and repeat.
Wonderful. Well, Dearick and Nedra, thank you again for an enjoyable interview and for offering your expertise on distant quantum energy healing and metaphysics to the world online and in person. And I think so many people will connect to your spirit, benefit from your services and your teachings and wisdoms. So for more information, everyone, about the Lanakila's distant quantum energy healing courses and their offerings, go ahead and visit their website, which is volcanoislandhaven.com. And thank you kindly to the listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, mahalo.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Mahalo and aloha.
Aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.